Hello, fourth grade artist. You should have last week cut out your ugly doll. If you haven't yet cut out any of the details like the eyes or the mouth, we're just going to set those aside today. And we won't cut those out quite yet if you haven't done that. But if you have, just put those into your sketchbook and we'll take care of that later. Today we're going to work on sewing together our ugly doll using what's called a whip stitch. I love that name, by the way. So we're going to need to get set up. We're using something called embroidery floss to take care of sewing. So you're going to need to pick a color first. Then we're going to need to find the end of the embroidery floss. Take your time doing that. After you have done that, you're going to be taking that embroidery floss and reconnecting it at the top and then placing it back into the box. If you need that color again, you can always go back and get it. But right now I'm just going to set it aside. And then I'm going to take my embroidery floss and I'm going to be using something called a needle threader. So I'm going to place this through the needle. It looks like a hook. And then I will take a bit of my embroidery floss, and it makes it so easy to take and thread the needle. Now, after I thread the needle, I want my embroidery floss to be twice as thick to make sure that my ugly doll is strong. So I'm going to wrap that embroidery floss around my finger. And after I've done that, I make a loop. And through that loop, the embroidery floss will be threaded. And I'm wanting to start at the top or the side of my head. I'm going to leave my hair unsewn at this point, or whatever you have at the top of your head. The reason I'm leaving it unsewn is because I need to have a place to put my hand into my ugly doll so I can stuff my ugly doll or place stuffing inside to make it three-dimensional. And so I'm starting what's called a whip stitch. You can see I went through the fabric, and when I went through the fabric, I went through the top, and then I'm going to turn it over to the bottom and stitch one finger away from the last one that I stitched. And it starts making it look like it's an angular stitch around my ugly doll. And I'm just checking and just pushing over that thread to make sure that I have it evenly spaced one finger apart. And I need to remove this tape here. Now that it's held together with my sewing or my whip stitch, I don't need to have that tape anymore on that side of my ugly doll. So I'm going to carefully continue going around my ugly doll, flipping it from front to back, being really careful that I make those stitches the same distance apart. So now I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot. And to make a knot, I have about 4 inches of thread left. And I have to sandwich my needle in between the 2 pieces of fabric and in between the 2 pieces of felt and underneath the last thread that I had sewn. And now I'll take my needle and I will go right through that hole. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'll go around that last piece in between the 2 pieces of thread, and now I have another loop, and I will take my needle and go through that loop. I have a double knot, and then I will just cut that extra piece